3, 2, 1.
Okay, what's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Real Talk with your boy MD. So this one's going to be a little bit different. It's more of an impromptu kind of video. I wasn't originally planning to record something like this, but over the last few weeks, I've been having a lot of conversations with folks, with friends, with colleagues, people inside of work, outside, people in my personal circle. And I realized that while I've been sharing thoughts and perspectives like in pieces, it might be helpful to bring a few things together. So think of this as more of a stream of consciousness, more so than something structured. I don't know if it's going to flow really well, if it's going to work, but sometimes you just got to turn the camera on, let it roll, and just see where it goes. So here we are. And look, I know there's a lot of noise out there right now. I'm talking about all the AI stuff happening, a lot of hype, some doom and gloom, and definitely no shortage of AI generated slop either. So I was actually deliberate about not rushing to put something out because the last thing anyone needs is more noise. But I really try to distill signal from all the noise, and I watch patterns pretty closely. And right now, there are way too many things converging, too much happening in too short of a time. We're for sure in the early stages of a massive shift, which brings me to the heart of what I'm seeing. Software engineering, as we've known it, it's gone. It's gone. Now, some people might say it's dead, maybe. Some say it's evolving, going through some serious change. I've heard a few different versions depending on who you talk to. But based on what I'm experiencing firsthand by building and what I'm learning from a small circle of people I talk to who are also building things, yeah, writing code by hand, the way we've been doing it for decades, through my career at least, is gonna be a relic, and much sooner than most people think. In fact, it's pretty much already here for me. While I'm recording this right now, MDX Code is running in the background right here, finding performance issues in the system I just finished building a few days ago. A few of you I know have been following some of my writing on the Real Talk website over the last few months. And I said 2026 was gonna be a step change year for the tech industry. And from everything I've seen through the first 6 or 7 weeks so far, we're in for a doozy. One of the most significant years our industry has seen in a very long time. Now, a number of senior leaders at the bleeding edge of this have shared their thoughts on how fast this moves, some more aggressive, some conservative. You've even got Elon who thinks that you could skip the entire development cycle and have AI ship straight binary. Little on the extreme side, but I do believe that by the end of this year, most modern engineering organizations will have AI models writing, committing, and reviewing almost all code, not humans. Humans will still be in the loop for edge cases, fine-tuning, niche, highly complex systems. It'll still more hands-on in organizations that haven't figured it out yet. But that gap between organizations that figure it out and the ones that don't becomes a massive competitive advantage heading into 2027. And it only widens from there. Now, I'm not saying this because of what the models can do today. That's the wrong way to look at it. I've seen them evolve through the last 2 years, and the pace of change is massive. And it's not just one thing. There are a few layers all hitting at the same time. Let's zoom out for a second, because if you only look at this through the lens of AI is writing code now, you're gonna miss the bigger picture. There's a few things happening simultaneously, and when you stack them on top of each other, you start seeing something much bigger. First, there are real geopolitical forces at play. India just had a massive week last week with the AI summit in Delhi. Every major AI CEO in one room: Altman, Modi, Pichai, Sabis, with head of state from over 100 countries. AI isn't just a tech conference topic anymore. It's a geopolitical conversation. There's an arms race happening right now to own the capability, the technology, and the gateway for frontier AI models. And it's playing out a lot like when Google became the de facto entry point for the internet through search, or how Google and Apple became the dominant two forces in the mobile ecosystem through Android and iOS. Same kind of positioning, except the stakes are much higher this time, the impact is much broader, and the space is much more ferocious. Look at what all the tariffs movement did. Shook entire companies overnight, reshaping trade and supply chains, questioning fundamental business models. That's macro forces at work. And AI is sitting right in the middle of that. Same kind of tectonic shift, except this one touches every industry, every function, and every role. The sentiment coming out of both OpenAI and Anthropic at the Delhi Summit was that we're a lot closer to a major capability jump than most people realize. Not years away, not someday. The language being used publicly on stage to world leaders was much narrower, anywhere from 1 to 3 years. Now, whether you believe the exact timelines or not, what matters is that the people building these models are making infrastructure bets, hiring bets, and product bets based on those timelines being real. And that's what we need to pay attention to. They're under immense pressure to deliver. Energy has also become a huge topic recently, as all of this infrastructure needs immense energy in order to scale. Anyways, don't worry too much about their speeches or whatever headlines that the media is covering. Focus on the actions that the companies are taking. That's where you start to connect the dots and get a feel for where things are headed. Which leads me into the next area that I'm paying attention to, which is where economic value actually sits inside a company. That's now moving. What used to be a competitive moat is changing. Just look at what Satya Nadella said about SaaS businesses, that they're essentially becoming CRUD interfaces. Companies that have created a $1 trillion industry are now what? Just CRUD? Think about that for a moment. And it's not just Satya saying this. Many folks are reevaluating the role that SaaS plays in their entire setup. Now, if you think about that, now at the same time, in an agent-first world, user behavior is starting to shift. As a user, you don't want to log into a dozen different applications. Why would you? Just have your agent do things on your behalf. Compare your insurance quotes, check your accounts, book the flight, schedule a follow-up. One conversation instead of 5 apps that you have to manually open. So for companies who are building their UIs or the user experience, the UX for users or consumers, well, how do you adapt? How do you shift if your primary user ends up being an AI-powered agent and not necessarily a human? And look, we've seen this platform shift pattern before. Websites ate share from desktop applications when the internet took off. If your business didn't have a website, you were toast. Then mobile apps ate share from websites. Everyone was scrambling to build a mobile strategy. And now agents are starting to eat share from mobile apps. Each platform shift moved faster than the one before. And this one's just moving the fastest. And that means the competitive moats built on access to capital and large development teams, those moats are being taken down. Where economic value gets created and captured is being fundamentally reset in companies of all different shapes and sizes. And finally, the other part that I connect to all of this is how work actually gets done inside organizations. Now that's about to go through a profound shift, not just in engineering. Everywhere. But engineering is moving first. And it's the catalyst right now because it's where the models are the most capable. And we have the benefit that code also happens to be very well structured, heavily documented, version controlled, and easy for machines to read. So it makes sense that's where strong capabilities start. So when you intersect these 3 layers, geopolitical shifts underway, an arms race for frontier models, economic value and competitive moats that are moving, and how work gets done changing, the craft of engineering as we knew it for the last few decades is turning into something completely new, and many won't even recognize it. And look, this isn't just me speculating. This is playing out right now in production at scale at companies you know. Now here's a tiny peek at just like 3 examples I'll cover out of literally close to 100 I might have seen in a given month. First up, we got Stripe, the company that processes trillions of dollars in payments. PCI compliant, regulated. They built autonomous coding agents they call minions. Yes, that's right, minions. A developer literally drops the task in Slack, the agent picks it up, writes the code, runs it through their CI process, generates a pull request ready for human review. No humans touching the code through this process. No human even logs into the dev environment. 1,300 pull requests merged per week, all agent produce. And that number the week before was 1,000. So that's already a huge lift, and it just continues to accelerate. Their CEO said publicly, this is not someone using an AI assistant in their editor. This is a human not logging into the dev box, completely automated. Now I know the objection. I've heard this many times. That's fine for tech companies, but what about financial services? They're regulated. They can't do that. Well, Stripe, like I said, processes trillions of dollars. They push agent-written code to systems that move real money. That objection just doesn't fly anymore. On the other end, you've got Spotify. Their CEO told Wall Street that that for their top engineers, AI is exclusively writing their code. It's been the case since December. Their best engineers are only generating and supervising code. Now, this is a company that's powering hundreds of millions of people's music consumption. And the stock went up. The market didn't punish them for this. The market rewarded them. And then you've got Anthropic, one of the frontier leaders in the AI space. The company that built Claude. 67% of their code is now written by AI. That number may actually itself be dated. The person who created Claude Code, his name's Boris. If you don't follow him, check him out. He hasn't edited a single line of code by hand since November. He ships, he said, I think somewhere between 10, 20, 30 pull requests a day. He previously also ran code quality at Meta across Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp. And he said they are getting 2% productivity gain. Took about a year's worth of work with maybe a couple hundred people. Since Claude Code launched, he said that the team is 4x their engineering team and productivity per engineer grew 200%. Not total output per person. So while these numbers are, something to look at, they paint a picture of where things are going. And he said something that I think everyone else close to this is starting to converge on. He said that coding is largely solved. It's a solved problem. And I think that's where the models are heading over the next few months, at least by the end of the year. And so here's one thing that really stood out to me across all these different organizations that I'm paying attention to. None of these companies coordinated with each other. They didn't read each other's playbooks. They arrived at the same pattern independently. The spec becomes the product. The repo is the source of truth. Agents execute. Humans provide intent and judgment. Same architecture, independent discovery. So when you see convergence like that across completely different companies, it's not a trend. It's a shift. And it's happening right now in real time. And on top of all of that, the speed of change is just hard to ignore because this isn't by 2030 thing. It's moving week to week, quite literally. Last Friday, Anthropic launched something called Claude Code Security. Basically, it's AI that scans your entire code base for vulnerabilities, not pattern matching like traditional tools, but actually reasoning through your code like a human security researcher, tracing data flows, understanding how different components interact. Found over, I think, 500 vulnerabilities in open source projects that had gone undetected for decades. Companies like Veracode, Sneak, Checkmarks, they just got put on notice. Markets also reacted in real time. Cybersecurity ETFs dropped to the lowest level since November 2023. We're talking about billions of market cap just wiped out from one product announcement in one day. Who knows what else is going to shift as we progress through the year into 2027. And if that wasn't enough, on the same day, Claude Code shipped the ability to preview the app it builds. So if you're using Claude Code in the desktop or web app, now not only can it preview its own app, it can read its own console logs, catch its own errors, auto-review its code, auto-fix CI failures, and merge its own pull requests. That's close to the full loop from idea to ship code, closable without a human touching a keyboard. So big headlines like this are dropping on a weekly basis is becoming quite normal, which gets you thinking about what's happening underneath all of this. These models, they literally just started as that, models, text in, text out. Then they got tool use. Think of it like giving them hands so they can actually now do things. They could call APIs, interact with your systems. Then came computer use, right? Actually operating a screen, which they do now. It might be slow, but they can do it. They can click around buttons, navigate interfaces. These are things all pointing to the direction that we're seeing coding become solved. And once coding is solved, expect close adjacent spaces to be quick follows. Security was literally last week. Some parts of testing are already evolving, but more progress happening, getting into other areas like infrastructure, operations, design. It's all on the table. Now, I know for some people, this is uncomfortable. I'm not going to pretend it isn't. If your career is in software engineering, you're hearing all of this and thinking, well, what does this mean for my role? What does this mean for my career? Now, what I would say is don't fall into the FUD cycle, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. It's easy to go down that path. I'm just pointing out patterns and connections that you're probably already seeing in snippets, but just bringing it together. But that feeling of being uncomfortable, I want you to know that you're not alone with that. The entire industry is trying to figure out what comes next. Now, I lead a large engineering organization. This isn't abstract for me. These are real people with real careers, and we're all going to be figuring this out in real time through this year and into next. But here's what I will say. I'm genuinely optimistic. Not naively, but based on what I'm actually seeing and looking at big shifts like this from the past. We've seen big shifts from agricultural heavy society to the industrial era, the manufacturing ramp to the growth of like knowledge workers, the internet boom, the cloud era. This is just another shift on the continuum, although a bit more of hyperscale. Every time there's been a major shift like this, my belief is that the craft goes up. We start solving higher order problems. When we got compilers, we didn't lose programmers. We stopped writing machine code and started building applications. When we got cloud, we didn't lose ops engineers. We stopped racking servers and started designing systems. So the abstraction just goes up, the impact goes up, and the value goes up. And by the way, this doesn't mean less software is getting built. It's in fact the exact opposite. You should expect exponential growth in the amount of code being written, the number of products being created, and the speed at which we ship. We're about to go into overdrive. There will be more software built in the next few years than in the previous few decades combined. That's what I believe. I've been having conversations internally about how the role of engineering evolves through all of this. And one of the words that keeps coming up is builder. Because we still have a lot of things we want to build. It's just the lines are getting blurrier between who can build and who can't. The line between product and engineering and design, they're blurring fast. And what I'm finding is that the same ideas I'm arriving at, people across the industry are arriving at independently. The role isn't shrinking. It's expanding, but what it means to do the work, that's fundamentally changing. And it's not just the roles, even our language is rebuilding in real time. Words like agents and agentic, these weren't even commonplace 1 year ago. Now they're everywhere. The lexicon itself is evolving because the old words don't describe what's happening anymore. That tells you something about the depth of this shift. So here's something I've been thinking about a lot. We're used to organizing our workflows, our systems, our documentation in a way that makes it easier for other humans to pick up the work, to debug, to understand how a system works. That's how we've always done it. But in a world where AI writes a majority of the code, that model breaks. You need code bases, documentation processes that make it easier for the AI to work, not humans. That's a vastly different approach than most current development setups. Now, I'm personally working in some of the bleeding edge components of this, thinking about what an AI native software development lifecycle looks like, where AI is the first class citizen doing the work. That's just me in my area. Now imagine 1 to 2 years from now when companies start looking across all job categories with the same lens. And look, nobody has fully figured this out. If you follow Boris or the folks building at these companies, what you see is everyone is trying to figure this out in real time. No one really knows what this new thing is going to look like when it matures, how it's going to be set up, what the ideal processes are, or what the craft really evolves into. The playbook is being written as we go. And that's exactly why the people who will be best prepared, it's not the ones with the most years of experience or the deepest knowledge of a specific framework. It's going to be the curious ones, the ones with a growth mindset and a bias to learn, the ones who are adaptable, the ones who move, because right now everyone is in mass experimentation mode. The capabilities are changing every week, the patterns shift every week, and the people who come out ahead will be the ones in there experimenting, building, breaking things, learning what works and what doesn't. Not the ones waiting for someone to hand them a packaged up set of instructions. It just doesn't work like that. You gotta be trying, you gotta be failing. For an organization like Sun Life, that's a 150-year-old heritage institution in Canada, this is actually a massive opportunity. The playing field is leveling. The advantages pure tech companies had, speed, develop a density, engineering culture, those are compressing. If we move now, if we lean into this, if we fundamentally rethink how we build and ship, we can compete in ways that weren't possible even 1 year ago. That's the change. So let me bring it home. Software engineering, as we've known it, it's being replaced. Not by something worse, by something that lets us operate at a completely different level. The macro forces are real, geopolitical, economic, how work gets done. They're all converging at the same time. The evidence is here. Stripe, Spotify, Anthropic, they're not experimenting. They're shipping in production at scale a regulated infrastructure. And the speed is accelerating week over week. Everything I just walked through, that wasn't a year in review. That was basically a week. And the opportunity is real. The craft is elevating, the barriers are coming down, and the organizations and individuals who figure this out first have an advantage that only widens. So to keep it real, I don't have it all figured out. I don't think most people do. Anyone who says they have the complete playbook for what engineering looks like in the next 2 to 3 years, well, I'd be skeptical, but I know this much. The worst thing you could do right now is nothing or just wait. I believe the window is open. I think we've got about 12 months before the gap between organizations that moved and the ones that didn't becomes very hard to close. So with that, I'd say stay deeply curious, dig in, start experimenting, keep sharing what you learn, and I'll keep sharing what I'm seeing. The world is shifting. The time now is to build. That's a wrap for this video. It's been a real talk with your boy MD. Peace.